Yesterday was May 17th, 2026. It was a Sunday, and what Iran just did changes every remaining calculation about where this conflict could go next. There are only a few actions that the international community sees as extremely dangerous escalations, and launching a drone at a nuclear power plant during a ceasefire is near the very top of that list. Earlier this morning, an Iranian drone struck the Barakah nuclear energy plant in the Al Dhafra region of Abu Dhabi. Not a military base, not a Navy ship, not a convoy, fuel site, or weapons storage area. A nuclear power plant. The first nuclear power plant in the Arab world. The only commercial nuclear facility anywhere on the Arabian Peninsula. It is a 4-reactor facility that provides around 25% of the UAE's total electricity supply. The drone hit an electrical generator on the outer edge of the facility and started a fire. With that strike, Iran crossed a line that the International Atomic Energy Agency, the United Nations nuclear watchdog, and the entire international legal system for protecting civilian nuclear sites was specifically created to defend. The IAEA confirmed at the time of this report that there was no radiation leak, no injuries, all 4 reactors were still working normally, and emergency diesel generators were active. The plant is still standing. But the IAEA's statement about what did not happen is almost unimportant compared to the deeper meaning of what Iran decided to do. An Iranian drone struck a nuclear power plant during a ceasefire in front of the whole world. And the response from the American military, especially the sudden increase in F-16 and F-35 flights over the Strait of Hormuz that CENTCOM publicly confirmed just hours after the strike, is the operational signal that whatever ceasefire still existed this morning is now working on a timeline measured in hours, not days. But let's step all the way back. To understand why this exact target, this exact timing during an active ceasefire, and this exact mix of strategic signals around it represent the most dangerous day of this conflict so far, you need to understand what has quietly been building underneath the ceasefire story for weeks. You need to understand what the Barakah strike really says as a planned strategic choice instead of a battlefield accident, and why the Energy Secretary's statement that, if there is no path to a negotiated settlement in the coming days, we will go back to the military method to open the strait, is not diplomatic language. It is a military timeline being publicly announced for the first time in very direct terms. Here is the full picture of what has been building toward this moment. Since the war started on February 28th, the UAE has intercepted more than 2,800 missiles, drones, and cruise missiles, more than 2,800. Emirati defense officials confirmed that number in early May, and it shows the real operational pressure on THAAD and Patriot missile systems that have been firing constantly, reloading again and again at a speed these systems were never designed to maintain forever. Israeli Iron Dome systems have also now been confirmed inside the UAE. The confirmation came publicly from the United States ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. That means the coalition protecting Gulf infrastructure now includes Israeli air defense systems operating on Emirati land in a way that would have been politically impossible to imagine just 18 months ago. The UAE has also secretly carried out airstrikes against Iranian targets. The Wall Street Journal and The Telegraph both reported a strike in early April on the Lavan Island oil refinery, one of Iran's 4 biggest oil export centers. The attack used Western-made fighter jets and drones, shut the facility down for months, and caused a huge fire. Iran answered that strike with missiles and drone attacks against Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Kuwait. And now, in the middle of all this, during a ceasefire, Iran has launched a drone at a nuclear power plant. The Barakah strike is not an escalation from a peaceful ceasefire situation. It is an escalation from a conflict that was already active behind the scenes, while the ceasefire label provided diplomatic cover, and both sides kept carrying out operations the ceasefire was supposed to stop. The ceasefire story has now ended, not because of a diplomatic statement, but because an Iranian drone hit an electrical generator at the Arab world's only nuclear power plant. Now, let's talk about what attacking a nuclear power plant during a ceasefire means as a strategic choice. The IRGC does not make military decisions by accident. A drone strike on a facility this sensitive during a period that is supposed to involve diplomacy is one of the clearest target choices possible for sending a message to every important audience at the same time. The Barakah plant is not a military target. Under the laws of war, under the Geneva Convention's additional protocols, and under the international legal system the IAEA exists to enforce, attacking a nuclear power plant is treated differently from almost every other military action during war. It is not only an attack on civilian infrastructure, it is an attack on infrastructure where damage could create much larger consequences. Specifically, radiation release and contamination could spread across borders, hurt civilian populations that have nothing to do with the conflict, and create effects that last for generations after the fighting ends. The IRGC targeted Barakah, fully understanding all of this. The choice was intentional. The message was direct. We will strike a nuclear facility during a ceasefire. We will show that no infrastructure in the UAE is protected by the ceasefire agreement we publicly accepted. We will force every government watching this conflict to rethink whether continuing the ceasefire is worth the cost. And we will force the UAE and its American allies to carry the diplomatic burden of responding to a strike on a nuclear facility during a ceasefire without technically breaking the ceasefire themselves. That thinking is the strategy of an organization that has run out of normal military options and is now using the threat of attacks on civilian nuclear infrastructure as leverage because its weakened military power can no longer create the same pressure through normal warfare. Now, let's be very clear about what the IAEA's confirmation means and what it does not mean. The fact that there was no radiation release and that all 4 reactors are still working normally is not the end of the story. It is actually the beginning of the story about what Iran's drone targeting and warhead choice say about this kind of target. The drone hit an electrical generator on the outside edge of the facility, not a reactor building, not a cooling system, and not a spent fuel storage area, just the outer perimeter generator. The fact that the damage was limited to an outside electrical system could mean 3 different things. It could mean the drone itself was not accurate enough. It could mean Iran deliberately chose to show it could strike the facility without causing the worst possible damage. Or it could mean UAE air defenses partially disrupted the drone's path and pushed it away from a more sensitive target toward the less dangerous outer area where it finally hit. Each one of these possibilities matters in a different operational way. If it was poor accuracy, then Iran's drone capability against protected targets is weaker than its public claims suggest, but it still proved it could reach the facility. If it was deliberate restraint, then the IRGC just showed that it can choose to strike more sensitive systems inside a nuclear power plant if it decides to escalate further. And if UAE defenses cause the drone to miss its intended target, then the UAE's layered defense system is doing its job but still failed to fully stop a drone aimed at a nuclear facility. That has major consequences for how the plant must be defended against more advanced attacks in the future. All 3 possibilities require the same response: stronger defense around the Barakah facility, stronger monitoring of possible drone approach routes, and a clear warning to Iran that targeting nuclear infrastructure will bring a response Iran's remaining military strength cannot survive. Now, let's discuss CENTCOM's immediate response. The sudden increase in F-16 and F-35 flights over the Strait of Hormuz, publicly confirmed by CENTCOM only hours after the Barakah strike, is the operational sign that the American military sees this attack as crossing a line that requires an immediate change in military posture. Continuous combat air patrols, meaning armed aircraft staying over the strait and nearby areas at all times instead of rotating with gaps between flights, show a move from simply monitoring the situation to running operations at maximum pace. Project Freedom, the American military mission to restore free movement through the strait, already involves 15,000 personnel and more than 100 aircraft. That operation was already moving at a very high level, but now it is being pushed to non-stop combat air patrol status because a drone struck a nuclear power plant during a ceasefire. American military planners believe the next attack could hit something even more sensitive or cause much greater damage if the air presence is not increased immediately.